Hello, good morning, and welcome to our Kings Langley, Leyhill, Hemel Hempstead, and Gaddesden Row, and Studham, actually, at the moment, group of churches all together here on Facebook Live, and later on YouTube. And so we welcome all our congregation from, well, sounds great, doesn't it? But we get to say, welcome to all our congregation across the world. From the entire world. Be interesting to know if anyone's dialing in. We usually have somebody, don't we, dialing in from Lanzarote or from somewhere. Give the prize for the person who's joined us from furthest away. Also welcome to our congregation who are slowly gathering here in the body of the church. Lovely to have you all here and with us. I have a question for later in the service. And this is for you folks at home as well. We're looking for, and I'm wondering about, examples of where you learnt from something that went wrong. Examples of things where it all went pear-shaped, but you learnt something really useful from the fact that it didn't work out. Or that you learnt something from I don't know, falling down and banging your head or something, and it shook some sense into you. That's a phrase we use, isn't it? Oh, well, hopefully that... I used to get that a lot because I have a tendency to walk into things. And I know one of the things people always used to say to me, well, that will have knocked some sense into you. I'm 57 now, and I'm not convinced that it's all been knocked in the right way yet. There's an awful lot of people shaking their heads. So yes, folks at home, if you have any examples of moments where something happened that wasn't meant to happen, and actually you learnt some profound lesson from it. I've got an example of my own, which I'll give in a minute. Just the first of our greetings, which is just that Shalini has just sent a message saying good morning to everyone. So good morning from Shalini. So this morning's worship is an all-age worship. We therefore... I said in the resource that we sent round for those who get the resource. I did say in the resource, I'm not entirely always sure what an all-age worship is. Because if it was truly all-age, we'd have to literally put in something for every age group, starting at sort of age 2 and go right the way through, or probably even earlier than that, and go all the way through to... specially designed items for, those in their hundreds plus or whatever. So I don't know exactly what, usually when I was growing up, whenever anyone said it was all age worship, what they really meant was that we're going to play some games and we're going to do some silly things. And I can assure you that we've got a couple of silly things this morning for us to join in with. Connected with the idea of making mistakes and learning from them. Before I do any notices, because we've got lots and lots of notices here on the sheets and things, folks will probably have seen some of the notices at home already and on the screens. They'll keep appearing, no doubt. I have a story. This is one that I always feel terribly guilty about, but I think as a family, I think we found this very interesting in terms of profound learning. I don't know if Ben is with us anywhere out there this morning, but many of you have met my son Ben, yes? Yeah, well, when he was very small and I was at home being a house husband, the health visitors, they always say to you certain things like, oh, well, they'll start doing this about this age, and then they'll start doing that about that age. And I hadn't realised that Ben could crawl. I thought that Ben was still at the kind of rolling over and laying on the floor stage, but he could crawl. And we used to have this little gas fire in the lounge, and Ben suddenly shot across the lounge floor I missed catching him. I tried to grab him by the legs as he shot across the floor, and he put his hand on the gas fire. Ow! And honestly, the guilt. And we rushed him down to Ashburton Hospital, and we took him in there, and they patched him all up and all the rest of it. Do you know something? That child, no problem ever with anything hot after that, always very well behaved, and weirdly enough, that was the last day he ever sucked his thumb. Even when they took all the bandages off and all the rest of it, and his hand was all healed up, never sucked his thumb again. At least I presume, he's 25 now. Gosh, he's 25. Ben's 25 now. So that was a learning curve. It was a learning curve as a parent. My child can move much faster than I thought he could. It was obviously a learning curve for Ben about hot things and about sucking your thumb. So I'm just saying that was just an example of the sort of thing where, obviously I didn't want Ben to hurt himself. But actually, in terms of him working out that certain things were dangerous to play with or touch or whatever, it was a very effective lesson. It is possible that my wife doesn't hold the same opinion of the incident that I did. Anyway, we took a line on parenting, which was, we wanted our children to experience things, perhaps not that, but that they would grow and learn from that. So yes, so that's an example of where people learn something from things that go wrong. Before I forget, I'll just plop in a couple of the notices. Help Owen and Colin break the cycle. From midday Saturday, 4th of February to midday Sunday, the 5th of February, Owen and Colin will be going the distance and cycling for 24 hours with no sleep, using static spinning bikes at Liberty Tea Rooms in Bank Court, Hemel Hempstead. The aim to cycle the equivalent distance from Hemel Hempstead to Edinburgh. Actually, I'd be quite tempted to actually try cycling from Hemel Hempstead to Edinburgh. That sounds quite fun. To break the cycle so this is the serious bit. It's to break the cycle of isolation and poverty in our community. And we all know Liberty Tea Rooms, and Liberty Tea Rooms do a fantastic job. So this is raising awareness of their work and poverty in our community. And they just say, and the message here was from Owen and Colin. And Liberty Tea Rooms are coming to speak here on a Sunday morning in about 4 weeks. In 4 weeks' time, Liberty Tea Rooms will be here doing that. So that's one notice for this morning. There will be a poster up for those in the church. I'm sure we can get that up on the Facebook page somewhere, somehow, at some point. So I'll just hold it up like that for a minute. Also, message about Holocaust Memorial Day. Let me have a quick look. This is the blurb about Holocaust Memorial Day, as it's next Friday, and it's therefore a bit late notice. So just to let people know that it's next Friday. The theme for this year's Holocaust Memorial Day is ordinary people. We are all ordinary people who can be extraordinary in our actions. We can all make decisions to challenge prejudice and stand up to hatred, to speak out against identity-based persecution, and to shop responsibly. Dacorum Borough Council, in partnership with St Mary's, would like to invite you all to a short reflection service at St Mary's Church in honour of Holocaust Memorial Day. So that's Friday the 27th of January, and that's 10:40 a.m. to 11:15 a.m. at St Mary's in High Street, Hemel Hempstead. So that's that one. And then there's all the usual notices, which I think some of which have been scrolling around on the screen. Gretchen's house group, I'm speaking there at 2 o'clock on Wednesday, Gretchen's house group, community coffee, growing great guns. I can't even say that. I'll try that sentence again. Anyway, community coffee going very well, and obviously a lovely place to come. And I mean, to be frank, I use it to come and keep warm and not put the heating on in the house. But there's board games, there's newspapers, there's craft items, there's all sorts of things. You can do what you like, or you can just sit and do what we normally do, which is make some tea and have a natter and eat up lots of mince pies that are only slightly out of date. It's a lovely opportunity to sit and chat together and to meet up. And that's on Mondays, Wednesdays and Thursdays, and the times and so on are in the notices and will be on Facebook as well. Wednesday, our HHMC Lay Hill Bible study continues. 8 o'clock on Zoom. You can get the link and you can just join us. We have a very interesting discussion, and I can't remember what's happening next week, but I know that this week rather, but that's always a good group to come along to. Oyster Club Thursday, obviously every week. Community lunch Wednesday, 25th of January, 12 noon till 2 p.m. Community lunch. We love community lunch. Community lunch is a very good thing. I get fed. It's super. No offence, but I get a nice lunch, which is lovely. Thank you. But also, I mean, both that and the community coffee and the community lunch are doing a fantastic job of making sure that our church effectively is open to everyone, lots more time during the week. So do drop in and join in. I think that's all for now in terms of the notices. I've got a few greetings from folk at home saying hi. Helen Taylor from Kings Langley says, good morning from Kings Langley, and lovely to have you with us, Helen, and glad that you can join us. So, all-age worship. Are you feeling young? Are you feeling energetic? It's awfully chilly out, isn't it, for feeling energetic? It's a bit, everybody's huddled here. If you can't see it at home, just to say, everyone here is still huddled in their coats and sort of, recovering from the Icelandic conditions outside the door. So yes, it's how do we get ourselves into a mindset of being youthful and vigorous and energetic? How do we start? Perhaps we should start with some exercises. I went to Oyster the other day. And they were all doing exercises. And I joined in for about 2 minutes and then I ran away. But yes, maybe we should stretch out. Or maybe I should. Anyway, we're going to lead into worship now, and I'm going to hand over to Ruth, and she's going to play us in with a little bit of music. I don't know if it'll be vigorous and youthful, but it'll be gentle and calming. A gentle start. Everyone can nod off again, and then we'll come back into worship. Thank you. And we have another greeting actually from Joan Norton, who says that she's joining us from a very frosty Lincolnshire. So welcome to, I told you we were an international congregation, didn't I? So we begin our all-age worship, and so as part of it, and as I was saying before, we're going to learn from our mistakes this morning. That's the idea. We're going to be learning from our mistakes and our errors. So if you've got any examples of that at home or whatever, let us know, and I'll ask later in the service here what wisdom you gained from something that happened. But we also need to think a bit like children today. So whether you are at home as being a child and joining in with this, or whether you are trying here to engage with being childlike in your attitudes, here is a little call to worship. We have gathered in this space, welcomed like prodigal children into our warm, safe home. We have gathered in this space, embraced like children and greeted by Jesus when others turned us away. We have gathered in this space. Let us worship God as beloved children, heirs to God's beloved kingdom of peace. And we sing our first song this morning. I was told that this was a Hempstead favourite, and we've done it a few times, I think, in other contexts, but I'm not sure, have we sung it on a Sunday morning? If I Were a Butterfly. So do we all know this one? Yes, great. Okay, so, and if there's anyone who knows the actions, you know it. Ruth will do the actions whilst playing the piano. That's a gift, isn't it? So yes, stand if you're able to do so, and we will sing together, If I Were a Butterfly, and if you feel like being butterflies, then please do feel free. Oh, do take a seat. I was very impressed. We had some wiggly worms, which was very good. Some folks doing actions. So is anyone doing actions at home? Anyone damage the furniture and learn that their arms were longer than they thought they were? Good morning from Susan Rickett, from Sue, Paul and Sophie. And Jan Guilfoyle says good morning to everyone. So lovely to have you all with us. Yes, so we're going to pray in a moment, and our first prayers are our prayer of confession. And quite often when I was doing all-age worships more regularly, one of the things that always used to get me was when you've got the little tiny children in the front, And I don't know who, but somebody in the Sunday school obviously had a gift for getting the children to sit quietly and put their hands together and pray. And one of the things I always used to feel really bad about doing prayers of confession when there were tiny children present, because you kind of thought, well, how on earth can they be sitting there doing a prayer of confession? So, and a minister said to me many, many years ago when I was training, and they said to me, when you look at your congregation, decide whether they look like they're really, really, bad, and choose the length of the pause in the prayer accordingly. But he said, don't leave it too long, or they'll think you're judging them. And don't make it too quick, or they won't have time to say sorry for all the things that they've done wrong. So, I don't know. But we have a prayer of confession to start, and we'll take a moment of silence, and then we'll pray together. Let us pray. God of mercy, we admit that sometimes we don't do what we are meant to do. We get angry at the slightest thing and imagine what vengeance we might wreak on those who have wronged us. We get lazy about the good news of our faith and don't consider our faith. We care for ourselves sometimes, but not for others. So, Lord God, we come to ask your forgiveness. Forgive us, we pray. Forgive us and help us to repent and make us whole. Amen. When we offer to God our confession, we join the beautiful work of reconciliation, of the getting back together, which begins with getting back together with God, trusting in our partner in grace. So let us make our confession, first in a moment of quiet. Gracious and loving God, open our hearts so that we are able to admit you to the fullness of our lives, that which is beautiful and good, and that which is hurtful and hateful. We confess that we do not follow Jesus in all that we do. We love conditionally. Sometimes we judge and condemn. We cast the first stone and keep logs in our own eyes. We do not turn to you as the source of healing. Forgive us, we pray. Forgive our sins. Empower us to be imitators of Christ and followers of Christ in love and service. Amen. So we come to our time of our readings. We have a psalm followed by the gospel reading. Who's up for reading a psalm? We have our psalm. Christine, thank you. So, and if the gospel reader will come up straight afterwards, that would be great. Thank you.
This is a prayer of praise. Psalm 27, reading verse 1 and then going to verse 4 until 9. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. For in the day of trouble he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock. Then my head will be exalted above the enemies who surround me. At his sacred tent I will sacrifice with shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. Hear my voice when I call, Lord. Be merciful to me and answer me. My heart says to you, seek his face. Your face, Lord, I will seek. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my helper. Do not reject me or forsake me, God my Saviour.
And our second reading is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 4, beginning at verse 12. When Jesus heard that John had been put in prison, he withdrew to Galilee. Leaving Nazareth, he went and lived in Capernaum, which was by the lake in the area of Zebulun and Naphtali, to fulfill what was said through the prophet Isaiah. Land of Zebulun and land of Naphtali, the way of the sea beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles, the people living in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. From that time on, Jesus began to preach, repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near. As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, called Peter, and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come, follow me, said Jesus, and I will send you out to fish for people. At once, they left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father Zebedee, preparing their nets. Jesus called to them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. Jesus went throughout Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and illness among the people. That ends our second reading.
Thank you. So if I bring it down to real basics there, we've got a real contrast, haven't we? Real nice, simple contrast. God, in the psalm, God is going to keep us safe, put us up on high ground where we'll be out of trouble. And when we are struggling, we throw up a cry to God and say, step in and intervene. And then we get the poor disciples and the calling of those early disciples, and we recognize that the whole story starts with someone in prison. Now, I don't know about keeping everybody safe, but suddenly, not only are the people of God not particularly safe, but they're in prison, they're hiding in places, and then, I don't know about you, I know when we were looking at this in one of the Wednesday Bible studies and things, the speed of the reactions of the disciples. What a risk to take. Jesus says, follow me, and they say, okay, and they follow him. Well, I don't know about you. I mean, I look around, does anyone want to do a risk assessment on that? What are the dangers? I mean, terrifying. And followed him all around. And then he gets on with doing all this wonderful stuff, the healings and the rest of it. And people took umbrage, and there were risks to the disciples, and they didn't know where they were going. Anyway, you get my point. We've got two pictures there, haven't we? We've got the safety and the thingy. I'm just going to do a little thing here because it amused me, the thought that we were going to have to struggle between taking a risk and doing something a bit risky, and then all the warnings that we get not to do something risky. I mean, in this day and age, anyone who's worked in the church, and those of you who work in business and all sorts of things, you can't do anything these days without a risk assessment, can you? I mean, it's all the rest of it. Well, I'm going to get Sheila to come and join me for a minute. We've got a couple of things here. These are genuine warnings. I've lost my warning list. You might have to do a few first, Sheila. I've lost my thingy. These are genuine warnings put on products or on adverts and various different things in which concern for your well-being was expressed.
Warning label on a baby stroller. Remove child before folding. In a car or a gas heater or something, never use a lit match or open flame to check fuel level.
Oh yes, all right, I'll do one. This was on a bottle of dog medication. May cause drowsiness. Use care when operating a car. I think they were barking up the wrong tree. Thank you.
Yes. Warning label on a hairdryer. Do not use while sleeping.
I want to know how you would do that anyway.
I have no idea.
Has anyone ever tried to use a hairdryer while sleeping? Anyway.
I haven't seen this one. Warning label on a cartridge for a laser printer. Do not eat toner.
No, I mean that might be for some of our younger viewers.
Possibly.
You know, very small ones, perhaps you might think of. On almost every disposable cup ever in every coffee shop anywhere, caution: contents may be hot. Well, I hope so, because I was hoping, and the fact that they were making it and there was steam coming off it, did that not give you a clue, maybe?
Or even worse, sometimes seen on packets of nuts, may contain nuts.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I've often thought we should put that on the wall of the church. Caution, may contain nuts.
Speak for yourself, Andrew.
Suitable for outdoor use, put on a rain gauge.
On a can of air freshener, for use by trained personnel only.
On salt, you can sometimes see the wording, high in sodium.
I think this one's Andrew's favourite.
Oh, this is the winner for me.
Yes, okay. On a sealed muffin, remove wrapper, open mouth, insert muffin, chew.
This product is not to be used in a bathroom, on the packaging of a bathroom heater.
On packaging for a clothes iron, do not iron clothes on body.
It's a bit like that old joke. Do you remember the old joke about I can't remember, it was whichever particular group we were being mean about at the time, but, how do you make them burn their ear? You call them when they're ironing. Please be safe. Do not stand, sit, climb, or lean on zoo fences. If you fall, animals could eat you, and that would make them sick. Thank you.
Do not use house paint on face. This was seen on TV in a Visa commercial that depicts an expecting couple looking for paint at a hardware store.
Do not drive cars in the ocean. Seen in a car commercial which showed a car in the ocean.
And from another car commercial which shows a vehicle body surfing at a concert, always drive on roads, not on people.
Provided on a shower cap, fits on one head only. People with two heads, you're going to have to get a bigger cap.
On an electric rotary tool, this product not intended for use as a dentist drill.
So anyone who had that inspired moment and thought, I'm not going to the dentist, I'm going to get the Dremel out or my power drill and I'm just going to sort out my own teeth, please be aware it wasn't designed for that. Pine Mountain fire logs at the garage that you could buy. Caution, risk of fire.
Air conditioner. Caution, avoid dropping air conditioners out of windows.
I think that'll do for now. Thank you. You get the general idea. There's so many warnings out there. Everything has a warning on it saying, something terrible could happen to you using this product. If you've got your own examples, actually, we've got a few have just been sent somebody in. Tina, hello Tina from Wales, the lady that made this shirt, by the way. Tina, I'm wearing one of the shirts today. Found on a string of outdoor lights. Do not hit with hammers. So there you go. We're going to take we're going to now move on, and we're going to sing our next song, I think. We're going to sing the hymn, God's Spirit is in My Heart, which is 404 if you're using the books at home. I forgot to tell you the number for the butterfly one. God's Spirit is in my heart. Stand if you're able, and we sing together. Do take a seat. I mean, that one does make you want to move about, doesn't it? It serves two purposes, that hymn. I chose it for two reasons. The first reason, well, actually there are three reasons. I like it. The second reason was because there's a message in there about being called, God calling you to go somewhere or do something, and to follow God and to follow Christ. But you don't have to worry, because God will be with you and support you. Don't worry what you're going to carry with you. Don't worry what it's. So in terms of that sense of the risk and reward, or whether you're going to go and do something. That hymn is really encouraging us to step out and do it, and then, God will get us through the bit where it's a struggle and it's difficult. Now, my notes have fallen down now. There was always a risk of that. So, the third reason that I chose the hymn is because I used to do a thing with that hymn. Whenever we had it, I would say to everybody, when we were doing the deep dark bit, stay seated. But when it gets to the upbeat bit, everyone jump to your feet, and we'll sing it with enthusiasm, so jump up on your feet. Well, after the first or second time that I used that hymn and did that, I got taken aside by a church steward who said, they didn't use the phrase risk assessment, but they said, this is a problem. So-and-so nearly fell over when you asked them to do that, and so on. So, there is a risk inherent in that very hymn. I guess what I wanted to sort of chat about, and I talked about that idea of us having things that we did wrong or made a mistake, and then we learnt something from it. And I'll come to that in just a minute. But a little bit of the thinking behind it is that we're all on this personal journey. We're still technically in the sort of time of Epiphany. Most of the Anglican churches have like Epiphany 2 and Epiphany 3. I can't remember where it goes. I think it gets up to Epiphany 4. Is it 4? It goes all the way up to Lent. So it's still Epiphany up to Lent. So this is the time when we're supposed to have all these great revelations and these moments where we suddenly think, oh, gosh, I've suddenly realized something. And then presumably we spend Lent thinking about it and growing it and developing it. I don't know. But in the time of Epiphany, it often makes me reflect. I wonder what happens to all those good ideas that we have. Because, not being funny, we're supposed to have been having these good ideas for 2,000 years. Now, if that had worked, I think we'd all be a lot wiser and a lot more sort of advanced, maybe, than we are. Do we learn from one another? I think we should learn more from one another, shouldn't we? It might be a good, simple lesson to go away from this morning. Perhaps we should do better to learn from one another. Ruth and I often joke that we can have a conversation and we've neither heard what the other person says, and it's worked well for us. 30-odd years of marriage and we're still talking. But it's that thing where sometimes we hear it and we don't hear it. God doesn't speak to us just in Epiphany. If anyone was tuning in there and thought that you really are supposed to only have your good ideas in Epiphany, I'm just joking. I'm just being silly. Of course you can have ideas. We have our bright moments. It's just that we celebrate the revelation of Christ and Christ coming into the world during Epiphany, but we also take it as that time to think about, all our intentions and things in the year going forward and how we're going to do things better. That was the idea behind New Year's resolutions, wasn't it? I'm not sure they really work, but did anyone make a New Year resolution this year? No point. Okay. Interesting. Good. Right. Do you know that number has dropped year on year whenever I've asked? Okay. Yeah. Because actually, usually by 3 weeks into the new year, we're all saying we've broken our whatever New Year thing it was. But we do think about it as a time of learning and growing and developing what we might like to do better this year. And on the resource, I mentioned that actually confession is part of revelation. Sorry, that's very deep for an AA service, but you know what I mean. That if you're not being you, it's very hard for you to then grow or learn a lesson about if you're not really open about who you are. So when I say confession, I don't mean about throwing yourself on your knees and saying, I'm sorry, I did this wrong or that wrong, but just that openness of saying, I am me. There are good things about me, there are bad things about me, this is who I am. And then learning to grow together is a lot easier if we all have an idea of who we are, rather than us all trying to pretend that we're really good, you know? I always think that when we think about people looking in on our services sometimes and joining us for the first time. If you ever look at us and think that we're all very holy, let me put you at ease, all right? Turns out most congregations, very normal people, you know? We're not holy. My halo, I don't know what happened to my halo. I lost it somewhere, you know. We are normal human beings. So, confession. Here's our opportunity. You can confess at home as well and tell me, what thing did you do wrong that you learned from? Anyone got a good example of something that they messed up and that they learned from and they grew from? Nobody willing to admit. Go on, Gretchen, you were first. Right. Oh no! So effectively, by playing with matches, sorry for anyone that couldn't hear that, because you were playing with matches and it melted the mosquito screen. So the mosquito screens on the windows then sort of burnt away or melted, and they all wriggled up and melted. And then her mum said, "Well, you did that. So I'm not going to replace the mosquito screens, you're just going to have to suffer." And she got bitten by all the mosquitoes. Gretchen, we're so sorry. I don't know quite what we say. I mean, you know, that's interesting parenting. I'm beginning to feel more innocent, Ruth and I. Yeah, okay, so you were shouting what as well? You were painting the ceiling in the kitchen. Oh, we've got a microphone. There we are.
I was painting the ceiling in the kitchen, but I was standing on the kitchen table, which is round.
Right.
And I took a step to the left, and the whole thing tipped over and I landed on the floor. I never did that again.
You didn't do that again. So you've now learnt that painting the ceiling, now there's a lesson for everybody at home, painting the ceiling by standing on the round table is not a good idea. Thank you. Where did the paint go? Oh, okay, because my vision was of paint going everywhere. I know that's, yeah.
I did go out and buy a little pair of steps for the kitchen, but I'm very careful now.
Yeah, yes. So sensible advice we can learn for 2023. If you're painting the ceiling, use a proper step ladder or something appropriate for doing the job. Yes. Any other confessions? Yes, go on, Jill. Oh, hang on. I think the microphone's coming your way. We're getting it. This is turning slightly into like one of those game show things, isn't it? Or Michael McIntyre or something. Yeah.
Something I've learned recently, which I should have learned years ago. It's okay not to be okay.
It's okay. Oh, that's good
And
advice.
if you're struggling with something, ask for help, and people will give it to you.
Yeah.
So that's really.
It's okay not to be okay. Thank you. Now that's actually quite profound. I mean, don't get me wrong. Being bitten by mosquitoes and falling off of tables is, but that's actually quite a useful piece. That's a useful piece of advice. While you're thinking, I learned a huge lesson from dropping a jar of lemon curd. And I was in my mum's kitchen and I dropped a jar of lemon curd, all right? And my lesson to you all is look up, okay? Because I didn't realize what had happened. The lemon curd hit the ground, the jar. I went to pick it up and the jar was empty, completely. And I couldn't work out where on earth the lemon curd had gone. And it turned out that it was stuck to the ceiling in a great big blob The lemon curd, the impact had sent the lemon curd straight up onto the ceiling. Had I looked up, I would have seen it coming back down again. Yeah, that's a good look up, because yeah, that may be where things are coming from. And any more for any more? Pam looked like she was about to confess and then thought better of it, because she was retracting from the idea. Oh, it's your husband's confession. Oh, well, I don't know if we're allowed to have that one. I mean, you can shout it out if you want. Hang on, microphone's coming. Microphone's coming.
My husband he absolutely loved these licorice all sorts. Absolutely loved them. And one night he took the pack and he ate every single one. And now he can't face them at all. He was so ill.
Yes. Yeah, wow, every single one. That sounds like something I'd do, actually. I defend him. I think, I don't understand how people can open a packet of biscuits and not eat them all.
I have got a confession of my own.
You've got a confession too?
I have, but I didn't suffer from it. I actually benefited from it, so I don't think this is a good one. When I was a little girl, I loved Lucky Numbers, the sweets Lucky Numbers.
Oh, okay.
And we only had sweets very occasionally, because we didn't have a lot of money. But I loved number 7s, and my dad loved number 7s. And one night, when they'd all gone to bed, I got the bag, and I swapped the number 7s over for a number 1. So I had all the number 1s, if you understand me, that were actually number 7s. So because I swapped the wrappers, and my dad didn't get any of the licorice all sorts that week.
Wow. This is a sort of, so stealing the sweets really is your confession, isn't it? Yeah, stealing sweets. I really don't understand anyone who can open a box of chocolates and not finish off the chocolate. I don't, the point at which you stop is when you get to the end of the box of chocolates. The lesson I have learnt from this, aged 57, is that will make you type 2 diabetic. So I have learnt my lesson. I actually thought that Ben & Jerry's was a food group, on its own. Yes, we can learn from that. Thank you for your confessions. Right, well, just moving gently on from that then. I think first things first is we started off by saying, well, we're not in the church here, we're not children this morning, and most of the folk that have, as far as I can see, joined us at home, I don't think that we have any very much younger folk with us today. But one of the things I think children are really good at is just being completely blunt about who they are, what they want. If a child's hungry, it comes and tells you it's hungry, If it wants the toy that you've got in your hand, then it comes and there's a sense in which I used to love when I did youth work a lot. One of the things I really loved is when I worked with the groups of young people that were allegedly very difficult, and I'd be warned, this group, it's a very difficult group of young people, and sometimes I even used to go into schools to do classes with young people who had a tendency to truancy and whatever it was. It was that group. Ironically, the group I was in at school as well, the sort of, we're going to have to do something about them group. And that supposedly difficult group for me was always, I found, absolutely wonderful, because you were never in any doubt where you stood. If you're working with a group of truants and they don't want to be there, they get up and walk out. So you already know where you stand. If they're still there, you must be doing something right. There was a sense in which all that social barrier, all that stuff that gets in the way, Paul talks about us putting stumbling blocks in the way of other people's faith journeys. But actually, of course, what quite often happens is when we feel called to do something, or like the disciples, when we feel that we're first coming to be disciples in whatever way on our journey, actually quite often what blocks us is not other people, it's us. It's us figuring out, us putting all the kind of the barriers and the social things and all the things in the way that mean that we don't get round to doing the thing that we actually think that we would want to do or should do. And here's the funny side of it, and I've had this conversation with folk many, many times, and that is that quite often people think that that's because it's something nice to do. And actually, their faith journey should be something really difficult and hard. So if something really good is happening, well, that can't be, if they're enjoying it, imagine doing a job in the church and thinking, I'm really enjoying doing this. Isn't this wonderful? And thinking, well, that can't really be part of my faith journey because I'm not suffering, I'm not struggling. But actually, that's probably because it was what God meant you to do and you were designed to do it. So there's all these blocks that we put in the way. One of which, of course, is that we are so risk averse these days that we sometimes put the risks up and we kind of go, well, it's too risky. We just can't do it. It's too difficult. And sometimes we just don't know ourselves well enough and think, I couldn't possibly do that. I won't ask for a show of hands because I think we'd get probably the whole congregation, but I'm willing to bet that most of us have been at some point in our lives told or asked, would you do such and such? And our first thought was, I am not capable of doing that thing. And everybody around us thinks that we're perfectly capable of doing it, but we're the ones saying, do you know something? I don't have that. I couldn't possibly do that. I don't have that gift or that ability. I mean, it's one of the reasons it took me so long to actually get into ministry in the first place, because I looked at ministers and I thought, I can't do that. I can't be that person. I don't have those gifts. The funny thing about ministers when I was a kid, I thought they were clever. I thought there were all these people that were ever so clever. 16 years into ministry, do you know what I've realised? We're not that bright. But it's true, isn't it? We put up the barriers in our way. So all I wanted to say this morning is we're going to think, in 2023, I'm encouraging you to think like children. Be what you are. Ask for what you need. I mean, Jill already hinted at that in her example. It's okay not to be okay. But be yourself so that when you're able to have the discussion about where you're going next or your journey or your career or whatever it is that you're doing, that actually you already know that, well, yes, that's something I would love to do, or that's something that, our journey has to be one inside where we grow to know and love ourselves. And it's not an easy bit for us. I know I've preached on it many, many times. How do we actually answer the second part of love your neighbour as yourself? We love the first bit because we like to love our neighbour and look after them and, feed them food. I'm obviously hungry. I keep thinking about that lunch on Wednesday. But that whole thing about that actually it's our fears, it's our barriers, it's our faith journey. We're just putting those things up in the way of ourselves. And we need to look back to being like children and not throwing up the barriers, but saying to people, I could do this, but I need help. That's what we're good at, isn't it? It was one of the things that we're really good at in the church. We actually help one another. We actually support one another. So, when we're stuck thinking, I need to do something, the irony is we think, I don't really want to bother anyone. But actually, I need help with this. Please ask. So that's my little message for the start of 2023 and for the Chinese New Year, I was told today. Yeah, today is Chinese New Year. So as we start the new Chinese year, as we're only 3 weeks into Epiphany, let the realization be that we are children and that we need to ask for help and we need people to look after us and encourage us. But actually, because of that, we can go on this amazing journey together. And we're going to celebrate that by singing. I'm just going to say it so Ruth gets a chance to actually... we're going to sing a hymn that is all about just following Christ when he calls, like those disciples in the Bible reading, that we have this opportunity to simply follow Christ where he leads us. So we celebrate it by singing, "Will you come and follow me if I but call your name?" 673 if you're using the book at home. In a moment, we're going to say our prayers of intercession, and where we openly ask God for help and help to do the things that he is asking us to do. But I want to, as it were, segue into that with a moment of confession of my own. Thank you for those who have confessed. One of the things that you will probably most of you know about me, and if you don't, then learn it from the yellow beetle on the shirt. And again, thank you, Tina. I drive an old Volkswagen Beetle called Patch. It's been very useful recently, and particularly in the cold weather, it's a very good car to have. But quite often, I've had a really strong reaction from people I've given lifts to in the car. One of the ones I get is, "Where's the fuel gauge?" Because if they can't see, or it doesn't, and where's the rev counter? And it doesn't have all sorts of features on the car. It does have a fuel gauge, by the way, it's just not immediately obvious. Also, quite a lot of the lights on the dashboard don't work, so on a dark night driving in your car, you're not always exactly sure what speed you're going either. I mean, you can sort of see. And people's reaction is a bit sort of, this is a bit odd. I mean, I'm not sure that Ruth's that keen on travelling in it, are you? She's not a huge fan. And on paper, it might look like quite a huge risk to drive about in a car that is 50, this year I think it's 52 years old. And I do end up quite often repairing it. But here's my bit of confession, you see. Despite appearances, I am somebody who panics. I tend to have out-and-out panic attacks and get into quite a pickle. And a really good example of this happened the other day. You see, I've gone back to doing some classes in secondary school with youth across Hemel. And I haven't done that probably since I was in my probationer appointment, which is some years ago now, 10 years ago or whatever. And I was feeling very, very jittery the other day, and I was getting myself in a right pickle. And I started getting all panicky about, and it's stupid things that throw me, like being on time, okay? For something like a school thing, that whole kind of happy-go-lucky turn up, I get myself in a right pickle. And one of the reasons I've always driven old Volkswagen Beetles is because actually I like a car that if I forget my keys or whatever, if I break down, I know how to fix it. If I lose the keys, I can still drive home because I can get in the car and make it start without the keys. That to anyone looking in, I mean, you'd have to have special skills. It's not, just in case they want to steal my car, But it actually reassures me to have a car where it doesn't matter what happens to it. If I lose it, which I have lost cars before, if I drive into some mud and it sinks or something, or I land on a beach and it sinks in the sand. Yes, true stories. It doesn't matter. If I scratch the paint on it, it doesn't matter. All I do is paint over it again, I like having a car that I don't have to worry about. Anyway, Andrew Pennycook is witness to the truth of the confession that I bring you. I was going to this school, and I think we're all a bit like this underneath. I was going to this school, I got myself in a right tizzy, I was running late. I wasn't actually late, I just thought I was late. And there was a whole thing about I had to have a pass to get in the school, and I had to go to one person's house to pick up the thing and then all the rest of it. Anyway, as I'm coming up to the school gates, I have to press a button, I have to wind the window down. Always fun in the Beetle, because it's the old hand winding one, and it's a bit stiff, and I'm winding it down, and I'm trying to reach out, and of course I haven't got close enough to the buzzer, so I've got the door open, and somewhere in the middle of it, I stall the car, all right? Oh no, I've stalled the car, and the buzzer person is saying, I'm opening the gates. Now, I don't know about you, but I have this feeling that when those gates are open, they're going to go open, they're going to give me exactly 30 seconds to get the car through, and they're just going to close whether I've got the car through or not. Do you ever sit under that barrier in the multi-storey car park and think, we're in a queue of traffic and I can't quite get forward, it's going to come down on the roof of my car? Well, of course it doesn't, but you think, well, it might. So I'm thinking, this gate's going to close on me and all the rest of it, and I'm going to be late. And in a panic, and because I twisted myself around to reach out to the thing, I put my hand on the ignition key to restart the key, and something wouldn't work. I could not, there was nothing. I turned the key, there was no spark, there was no night, no lights came on the dashboard, nothing happened. Literally nothing happened. I mean, oh no, what's going on? I'm going to do. And Andrew saw me there later, didn't you, when I came back? And what I did was, I ended up shoving the car up on the pavement and writing a sign on it saying it's broken down, and then rushed in through the school gate and went and did the whole class. Now, I have to say, I did that class with some energy, and it worked out. And then afterwards, I came back. And I got in the car, okay? And this is why I say we get in our own way. Because I got in the car, and I put the key back in, and I thought, I'll just try it. And I was going to bump start it down the hill, maybe, or do something like that. And I put the key in the thing, and as I put the key in, I felt the whole thing click back into place. Because what had happened was I'd pulled it out. I pulled the ignition thing because I'd panicked. 2 seconds it took to mend that car. I put the key in, I turned it, and the car started, and I drove home. What a lemon I felt. All that stress and all that pickle, and actually, if I just calmly put the key in the slot and turned it, I would have been fine. But that's not me. That's not how I react to stuff. I go mad. And that's things. So there's my confession. Your minister is a lunatic. And actually, one of the reasons I love having old cars is because it means that I can always fix the stupidity that I've just created. So that's why we're stuck with all those old cars. I'm sorry about that. She knows. So as we bring our prayers for help, let's be honest about asking for help. When we leave a gap, let's just ask for ourselves what help we need. Because I'm not the only panicker in this congregation. I'm certainly not the only worrier in this congregation. And I'm certainly not the only person in this congregation who gets in their own way. And that's in our big wider congregation as well. Jan just sent a message to us saying, that's been the story of my life. I'm capable of that. I always assume I'm not capable of that, but I've learned that I am actually quite capable. So thank you, Jan, for that, and thank you for sharing. Let's take a moment to pray before we sing our last hymn. Let us pray. Loving one, as we come to you as part of your church on earth, we pray for our world. We are so often confused, panicked, bewildered, and thrown by the things that we have seen, overwhelmed by the magnitude of all that life brings. The words we use, the names we have for you, get messed up and spoiled by the sickness of the world. Lord God, we ask that you be with us and touch us, that we might see the world as you see it, that we might hear the rhythms and know the prayer of your heart. Guide us, that we might truly understand your word, that we might hold in our hands the compass by which to steer. Lead us that we might follow in your way, seeking justice for the outcast, freedom for the oppressed, and forgiveness for those who are broken by life. Heal us, Lord, from the nonsense and the craziness, that we in turn might be able to bring healing to others, that we might reach out in love to those who have been taught only hate. Strengthen us that we might have the courage to live as your people in this troubled world, and the grace to live with the consequences of that choice. And so in the quiet, Lord, we bring before you the concerns of our hearts, the international things that we see on the news and which we feel we have no impact on. We bring before you, Lord, the things that of our country and our leaders and all the politics again, which seems to be an endless stream of nonsense. And we also, of course, bring before you, Lord, those particularly close to us that we are worried about. So in the quiet, Lord, we bring before you our personal concerns. And the prayers that we bring for ourselves, we now offer for the whole of your church on earth, that together we might truly hold out your peace and your wholeness to the world in the name of Jesus, who brought this gift to us. We share together the words that Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen. Thank you for joining in with the service. We're coming to our final hymn. You will see, no doubt, on the Facebook feed later that Tina would like you to know. Also, please be wary if Andrew ever asks you to help change a car engine. This is because somehow I managed to end up dropping a car engine on Tina's finger. I don't think she's ever quite forgiven me, so... And the fact that she's brought it up on here. So, there's another confession for today. We sing together our final hymn, You Shall Go Out With Joy, which I am promised we're going to sing 3 times through, and each time getting slightly faster, perhaps. So, if you feel like dancing or going out with joy or whatever, then do so. But you shall go out with joy. Wonderful. It's good stuff. Wherever you are today and whatever is happening in your life, as you turn to the Eternal One in worship and prayer, may God bless you and keep you. May God look on you with grace and mercy. May God acknowledge you and give you peace. Amen. And the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen.